Hey everybody, good morning. So I've had a lot of questions from people that weren't able to tune in the other night. And so actually, I thought just for the sake of, how they say like learn one, teach one, do one or something, I thought it might be valuable for me to try to articulate my best takeaways from the other night on the Developing Your Child's Moral Imagination with Becca and Mariano. And there were 50 of you guys on. So what I would really appreciate is if you would comment with the best practices that you got and the best takeaways, because that might be stuff that I either missed or whatever and might be really beneficial to other people. So I've gone through my notes and then kind of what I've been thinking about since then. And then I also asked Todd, and I'm just going to run through hopefully kind of briefly for you guys what the kind of biggest things I got in terms of what I want to apply with my own family. So first thing is just this whole concept of the moral imagination. They went through a lot of philosophies, starting with Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas. I'm not super into philosophy, but basically the moral imagination is the ability in your mind to understand and to discern what is good and to know that good is good and bad is bad, and to have that ability to discern that, and then also to then make choices towards the good. So, that when you're an adult, you would be able to make those right choices. And it's formed all the way through your life, through the memories that you see, through the pictures that you look at, the music that you hear, the family experience you have. And so all of these things play into the moral imagination. And so one of the things that I thought was really interesting is when they were opening, Mariano was using, it was some Latin term that I didn't know, it was a legal term, but it translated to, you cannot give what you do not have. And basically, it's some term used when you're selling things legally. If anyone's a lawyer, they may know the term I'm referring to. Anyway, what he meant by that is, as a parent, if you're not demonstrating kindness, if you're not demonstrating, that you're trying to live, the virtues, if you're not demonstrating good choices of media use, then you're not going to be able to teach this. So first and foremost, as parents, we need to be teaching ourselves these things so that then our kids can emulate them. And so many of the things, their kids are, I think, 6 to 19, and they said that as they've looked back and asked their children, when their kids really demonstrate that they understand a concept or whatever, and they say, where did you learn that? Almost always it's from their memory, and not from like a memory of an experience, and not from something that their parents taught them. So not so much like in a lecture, like don't do this, but more that they observed Mariano being kind to Becca, or those types of things. And so how much a child's experience of what they see in their family impacts what they're going to believe and how they're going to act later. So I've got notes down here, so I'm going to kind of be toggling between looking at you guys and looking at my notes. So ultimately, our goal as parents, or at least their goal, is to raise street smart, productive children. And really, you want to raise kids that you want to hang out with. So kids that you like, kids that are fun, kids that their moral compass reflects your moral compass. And so I think it's always really helpful if we can kind of keep the goal in mind. And I thought that was really funny. Like, hey, make sure you're raising kids that you want to be around. Okay. All right. So when you're thinking about media, there really are 3 concerns you want to think about. So one would be the content, one would be the amount, and the other would be the quality. So content, here's the philosophical thing in terms of how it impacts your moral imagination. You want the content to demonstrate good is good and evil is evil. And they acknowledge that there's fewer and fewer movies and TV series today that actually will do that. But make a goal that what you're viewing, especially what you're viewing on a lot, good is good, evil is evil. And in fact, in their family, if the show does not do that, it's like avoided, like it will not, that's on the like rat poison list. So their kids are not watching anything where evil is presented as good, and vice versa. Okay. And then the quality, which I thought this was so interesting, that like you want the music to be beautiful. You want the artistry in the movie to be awesome. You want the script to be amazing. You want the acting to be fantastic. And so really thinking about the quality of what you're watching too, because they gave the example of like Christian movies and how so often, because their budgets are low, the message is really good, so it's presenting good is good, but the cheese factor is like, high. And I can think of a couple movies that dispute that in Christian films, but in general, that's a really true thing, that just the quality is kind of So your highest seeking for a movie or TV or whatever would be that the content, good is good, evil is evil, the quality is very high, and then you've got the question of the amount. And one thing that they've done in their family is they don't do any media during the week, which is mind-blowing to me because we watch a lot of sports during the week. But they don't do any media during the week. And one way she demonstrated this, which was very interesting, is she showed a pie graph. They're in Northern Virginia, and she just showed like the requirements of a student in Northern Virginia during the school year with the commute to school and the amount of homework and the amount of sports and all the things that they have to do. And really, there's just not time on there to be playing video games or to watch movies or watch television or any of the things. And so if her kids are wanting to watch these things, she just walks them through that, and she really gives her kids, she teaches them the idea of executive function. And so like for instance in her family, I don't think she talked about this, but I happen to know this, they all do their own work during the day. Like now everybody's being homeschooled, so they're expected to get all their work done by 4:30 in the afternoon, and then after that it's family time. So she's not managing each person's schedule. They're managing their own schedule of how often, gosh, you guys, I'm like trying to hold this really steady. I should have set something up, realizing, sorry, if it's vibrating and, oh gosh, it's kind of vibrating. Sorry, I'm doing my best. I should have set up a, whatever it's called, to hold the phone. Anyway, you're getting my best that I can do during quarantine. So anyway, so they're not doing any media during the week. And then one thing I thought was so interesting, and I thought this was such a good takeaway, in their family, entertainment is a group activity. You're not allowed to watch any movies, any television, any of that alone. And there were like 3 really cool benefits to this. Number one, it just grew friendship, because the kids are having to watch these things together. So it's not like you're going in the TV room and you're watching alone. Number 2, they're learning negotiation skills, because of course, you know, one kid might want to watch this and another kid wants to watch this, and they have to give or take. And then the last thing is it's obviously preventing them from accidentally watching things that would weaken their moral compass. So we all know that when, especially boys, are alone in their bedroom watching stuff, there's a high risk that they're going to fall upon stuff that is not going to be good for them, for the way that they view women, treat women, or any of the things. So I thought that was a really smart idea, to make entertainment a group activity within the family. Okay, also, when they're watching a movie or TV, they determine what they can watch based on the youngest person in the room. So the maturity level of the youngest person in the room would be how they would determine if the show or movie is appropriate. And then another thing is that many movies have overall good messages, but there's parts in it that you may morally disagree with. And so in those things, they do a couple things. Number one, they're watching those movies or television programs along with their kids, so that they can fast forward during sections that they disagree with. So in their family, 0 sex scenes can be watched, 0. And so they will fast forward through those. And then if there's a part where maybe they're promoting something that they disagree with, they'll pause and they'll discuss that with their kids. Or maybe they'll wait till the end and say, hey, do you remember when something blah, blah, blah happened? So that the kids can process those ideas with their parents versus on their own. And one thing they were even talking about was the fact that this means they have to really think through their own time. So like if they're going to watch a movie that they know has some questionable things about it, they got to think through, like, do I have time tomorrow to really process this with kid number 3? You know, to really walk through what maybe was questionable or what might have been a little bit over their head or any of that. So really the intentionality was like, wow, I don't know that I'm that intentional with what I'm thinking about with my kids watching. Okay. Hang on. Sorry. Oh, let's talk about phones. This was a big question, and I was very interested in this. Okay, so number one, they do not have a certain age that their kids can get phones, but they do have to sign a contract. They have to demonstrate that they're ready, and if they are not ready after they get it taken away. One way they deem that the kid is not ready for that phone is that they're tethered to it. So if their kid is on their phone all the time, they lose that phone. So they had one child that lost their phone for an entire year. And in their family, they teach, and I loved this, that a smartphone is a device for professionals to do work. So children do not get smartphones. They get flip phones where they can make phone calls or send basic text messages. And that's what the phone is used for. And that's what they're really teaching their kids. And so they're not getting the expectation that they're going to get a smartphone. I do know, they didn't mention this, I haven't seen the phone, but there's a new phone out. I think it's called Gab, G-A-B-B. If any of you guys are using this phone or have it, I would love some feedback. But it looks like a smartphone, and you can send text messages and you can make phone calls, and you can take pictures, but you can't send them or receive them. There's no apps, no internet, all of that. So anyway, I'd love to hear about that. They didn't mention that. I don't know if they've used that, but it's something personally that I've been interested in because it might look a little cooler than a flip phone. So that was how they handle the phones in their house. And hang on, let me look and see if there's anything else. I think those were, oh, this is kind of cool. They were just talking about, as parents, we obviously fail. And, we can really beat ourselves up for that. And they had really thought through, like, okay, what happens when I fail in terms of what am I demonstrating to my kids? That I got mad, I yelled at them, or whatever the thing is. And so they had 3 things that they really got out of failure. And I think this is good because we all have to exhibit grace to our children, but we also have to exhibit grace to ourselves. And so one of them was just being able to reiterate the point to our kids that we aren't perfect. And there's only one that's perfect, and that's God. And so really being able to kind of reinforce that point. The second thing was failure obviously builds humility in us, and we should be striving to be humble. And the last thing is it really teaches our kids how to apologize, because if we fail, scream at the kids again or whatever the thing is, and then we go to them and say, hey, I'm really sorry, I lost my temper. Will you forgive me? We're demonstrating for them in their lives how to fail and then how to, reconcile that failure. And so I thought that was a really good point too. Okay. This was actually longer than I expected, but I guess with 2 hours of training, 12 minutes isn't that long. So I would love to hear really whatever I missed. I'm sure there were parts that I missed or parts that you got out of it that I just went over my head. So please, in the comments, share your best takeaways. And if you guys have questions, I can pass them on to them and see if I can get more answers. Thanks, you guys. Bye.